Well, greetings from Polymath, soon to be Polyhedron here. We are working the Chancellor's Room. I think they probably unlocked this content, but just working on a Howling Stones key. Um, I think what we're going to see, yeah, this is the Sarnak Chancellor, who's the placeholder for Chancellor Dazak, who carries the spear. So unlike Zalgaz, who drops 2 of these fangs, the Chancellor Dazak, he carries a spear, so what is it, 8-12? So I think he spawns like every hour or every 2 hours. I think P99, it's something ridiculous, like a 2-hour respawn. so it's just a little ridiculous in this room, just waiting on the spawn, um, on Chancellor Dazak's spawn. I think Howling Stones was probably unlocked, so this is not necessary. But and we are in Lake of Ill-Omen, so we can maybe work the Goblin Kazugi ring up here between kills. And it's not like anybody's here. This is Yelnak, and this is what we're almost in Omens of War, so it's not like anybody really cares to get their Howling Stones key. But in Era, like on a server like Oakwind, I think this is going to present real problems because obviously you have a first to engage, the person that's like literally sitting right here and has a computer program that automatically targets the Chancellor and automatically kills them, is going to have a competitive advantage over someone who doesn't. And I think all of the sort of unscrupulous behaviors that stem from that, like selling chrono and selling plat to the highest bidder, you're going to see a lot of that. Of course, you're going to see that. So I think, I'm not sure that first to engage is really going to solve that problem. I think what they can do is maybe something. I think they might have said something like this, and I think they did this for Lucklin era. Um, Mobs that drop the Vexthal key pieces, to increase their spawn rate and then increase the rate at which they drop key pieces. Um, that might serve to mitigate some of the bad behaviors. They never completely go away, but I think those players that are resorting to unscrupulous programs and unscrupulous behavior to get the keys, they're obviously going to have a competitive advantage over those that don't. So you're going to see a lot of guys just sitting here and clicking and just doing that silly stuff and trying to, people that want to get into Howling Stones, there's going to be this big bottleneck to get in. So yeah, I think Chancellor Dazak, I think he's on a 2-hour respawn timer. You could just literally spend all day here and just on top of his placeholder, and so I've been killing him off and on. I think I got the Sarnak Chancellor, but I haven't gotten Chancellor Dazak yet, and he only drops 1 spear at a time. So unlike the Zalgazian Fang, you always get 2. So that's, I think that's something they could work on. Another thing I'd like for them to work on, in addition to getting keys, so I'd like to see more guilds getting into Vishan's Peak in Era, instead of just awarding Vishan's Peak to guilds that are doing the same type of activity where everyone's bottlenecking to get the Vishan's Peak key. It'd be nice to, increase the spawn rate of key mobs and, increase the rate at which those key mobs drop their key pieces, and so that everyone, or maybe like 50% of guilds can see some Vishan's Peak content before Velius launches. And it's not like the best items in the world drop out of VP, but it's really cool looking content. It's a classic zone that a lot of people don't get to see in Era. So I think it would be really nice for people to, especially casual players in casual guilds, family guilds, to see that stuff. So I don't think, you know, um, I think. I don't think just awarding like the super type A's is probably going to bring more players to the game. Um, Another thing I'd like to see is like a reason to work faction. You kind of see this a little bit with, say, with the Froglog illusion mask, where you need to you need to work Froglog faction, Froglogs of Guck faction, which is a classic era faction grind, right? Which you can work that faction in Kunark by going to Seblis and killing live froglogs in Seblis, or killing undead froglogs in Seblis. That will allow you to get froglogs of Guck faction. And once you're warmly, then you can get the Wood Elf Illusion Mask, which is a quest that's done out of, um, you know, classic era um, Guck. It's awarded by the Ancient Froglog, and that's a Plains of Power era quest, which is neat. Um, I like to see more. Let's see here, just tash them and then get. There we go. I like to see more. There you go. I can't seem to get him. Oh, there we are. It's not like it matters. But I'd like to see more quests developed during these classical eras. You kind of see that with the archaeology quests, which I don't think those are available to P99 players. But the archaeology quests are great. Classic or Kunark era quests that you can do get you really nice items. I'd like to see more of those quests developed. I'd like to see a reason to do these faction grinds. So, for example, if you grind faction with, say, the Legion of Kabbalists and the Crusaders of Green Mist, and you get up to, say, maybe warmly with them, or maybe at least amiable, maybe you could quest an item a lot like the Goblin Kazugi Ring. So, you'd have to do a lot more work, grind more faction, get a lot more bone chips or whatever. But to get you a really nice item that would give you an instant invis would, I think, take away from the chrono farmers that are, farming, perma-camping the Goblin Kazugi Ring and selling that for top dollar, and or like a instant sow or a clicky haste item. Those would be really nice. Um, those would be really nice to get real items for faction grinds and have a reason to faction grind in era to benefit you in future eras, because you're always going to use a clicky and viz. You're always going to use a insta click items are just so valuable. Even Eye of Zome, from the singing steel helm, like bards use that for pulling all the time. It's critical for pulling. Um, like the the um, the flying monkeys that drop the Eye of Zome item. I forget what that's called. Maybe give players a reason to do some faction grinding in era that would award them a similar item, so they could get, like, Eye of Zome for their particular classes, so that they don't have to spend top dollar for one of those items. Plus, it would give you a reason to go back into content in era. I know that we use, say, if you go to faction and you go to Scars of Elias, and say you want to work the Coldane faction or COV faction to get the cleric clicky pants. Well, the focus effects don't go into effect until Lucklin era, right? And those clicky pants are affected by focus effects. And say you're a cleric and you die on raid, you are rezzed and you have no mana, at least you can click your clicky pants. And if it's affected by focus effects, that's not an insignificant heal, say if you're in the middle of combat, for example. It gives you a reason to work faction when you're out of era. So I'd like to see more of that, like, say, develop some classic content, so that you can get a similar type of quest reward, not like a silly, like like reward from the Daybreak store, but I'm talking like a real item, like a clicky haste, a clicky invis, a clicky sow, maybe a targetable, um, say, resist magic item or a resist disease item, uh, by doing faction grinding in era. So that'd be pretty nice. And I'd like to see like maybe an increased spawn rate, because just waiting on the 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 chancellor here is just, this is ridiculous. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to do this, and I think a reason why they unlock this is for that reason. I know that I think Mischief, for people on the Mischief server, they didn't have to worry so much about key mobs for the Vexthal pieces. Um, but the big bottleneck then was, can you kill Emperor Sra? So I'd like to see them maybe implement something similar. If that worked, I never played on Mischief, but if that worked and people were able to get to Vexthal in Era, maybe they could do something similar in Kunark, so that guilds could get to VP in Era and Howling Stones in Era, and be able to see this content before like Vilius comes out, and like all of those like gear upgrades out of Howling Stones and VP become obsolete within one expansion. So give players a reason to get up there and see the really cool content, right? Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I'm basically going to come here off and on throughout the day to try and work the Howling Stones key and do the sort of stereotypical, guy in a basement, Howling Stones, dungeon crawl. um, So yeah, it's going to be a while before Chancellor Dazak respawns. So and so yeah, I gotta clear out my slots. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this camp. I was going to work I worked the ABC camp in my last video. I'd like to work maybe Disco 1 and Disco 2 um, for future content, and maybe work like Howling Stones upstairs basement, just for fun. Nothing crazy. Um, but anyways, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you're a dev, please consider some of the suggestions I made. Okay, goodbye.